Most of us think healing from a toxic relationship is about moving on from the relationship. But the real healing is learning how to return to yourself again. Because somewhere along the way, you didn't just lose the relationship. You lost parts of you. Hello, my name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. And this is the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. Today we are diving into toxic relationships and healing from them. This is something many of us have dealt with, and it can be some of the most excruciating work you can go through. Because it's one of those types of traumas that until you work through it, you're either running from it or it's controlling your life. So when it comes to toxic relationships, we're not talking about what it's like within these relationships, but what the aftermath, the falling out looks like. What the falling out with yourself looks like, because often we're left confused, dazed, and lost on what to do. So what are your thoughts on this, Justin?
Well, number one, we have to talk about what is toxic, what makes relationships toxic. All couples struggle from time to time. Is that toxicity? Probably not. So these toxic relationships are not defined solely by a bad person,
Yeah.
because I'm always the good guy, you're always the good guy in our minds, and it's very difficult for us to see. But that's besides the point. This kind of reminds me of the narcissism show we did just recently, where it's like, well, narcissist is bad. Toxic is another one of those filler words that are really, really used incorrectly, I think. And I say that, and I'm asking for some grace, because I know victims of toxicity, they're going to be like, F you, pal. It was toxic. I understand. I'm not saying anything about that, but it's difficult to call something toxic if we're just focusing on one bad person or who we think is bad, who may not be bad, yeah. Right? To me, it's more like an energetic imbalance between the two. The dynamic is bad. It's not jiving pretty well, right? Because we're talking about these cycles where love becomes survival, but it's not always survival. Sometimes it's love again, but then it's survival again. And it's really hard to pin that on one person all the time.
When you brought up a really good point with this about how our psyche is designed to make us not be the bad guys in our own stories. Mm-hmm. And these dynamics have a way of when that chemistry feels there, but the compatibility isn't, where our insecurities rise to the surface and poor coping mechanisms get involved, whether that's communication, whether that's asserting boundaries, whether that's being able to express needs. Like you're saying, there's often a melding that's happening. Mm-hmm. And it's not that you're toxic either. It's just that there's a misconnection here. And unfortunately, we're more attuned to our wounds than we are to connection.
Yeah. Think about a bad chemical reaction, right? Some chemicals mix very well. Energy is the same way. Sometimes we simply just don't mix well with others until there is some of that healing going on. I don't know if you have any stories about this, but I know lots of people out there do, where you meet someone at some one point in your life, and there is a strong feeling there, but it's just bad juju all the time. But then you meet them later in life. The breakup wasn't necessarily bad or anything, or there wasn't any abuse, but you meet them later, and then they're just like, because some things had to happen for each of them. Things moved, wounds healed, things like this. So again, this is about a mixing of people, right? When we're mixing energies, think of it like chemical reaction, because sometimes it's explosive. Sometimes it's not great. Sometimes and we'll probably get into this later, but at the bottom line here, what makes a relationship truly toxic for me is where you have this emotional roller coaster, all this love bombing, all this other stuff, right? Where I give you a bunch of affection and gifts, and I just shower you with love and attention, and then all of a sudden, nothing. I'm just ghosting you. We live in the same house, but I'm ghosting you, right? Yeah. And it's not just one or two or three times. It's a constant cycle. We always talk about cycles here. Everything is in cycles, the good things and the bad things.
What's that cat and mouse, right?
Right. It's just this up and down roller coaster type thing, and where you, like I said, you'll get affection, and then all of a sudden there's a withdrawal, pulling away. There is, a bombing of validation, and then just chaos. or a little bit of, you'll have maybe 2 weeks of consistency, and all of a sudden it's just bam, chaos, pure chaos, where the person is looking for that moment of peace, but like kind of doing this type of thing, right? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what a trauma bond is right there. I mean, I believe trauma bonds exist in levels, and it's all about that intermittent reinforcement. You're pulling the lever of the slot machine, hoping it's eventually going to pay out. And what happens is you go through these cycles of you get that affection, you get that reinforcement, then it gets pulled away, and you start chasing that validation. Those wounds get activated.
yeah,
Because, I mean, I've done a lot of research into passionate love versus companionate love. And passionate love, when we passionately love someone, now I'm not saying this is every case, but in many situations, our wounds get activated and we seek in someone else the things we want to heal within ourselves. So I know for me, I would find people that needed fixing. And I never saw it as that. That was just what I was attracted to.
right,
And it was because of an instance in my past where I wasn't able to save someone.
yeah.
And that followed me into my relationship. So I would be highly attracted to people who needed saving. And I never made that correlation until I started this journey, but that's where my passion came from, even though I didn't know it.
Well, and this kind of goes back to the show that we did, that actually hitting today, the day that we're recording, the 28th of October is when this show hit, the Half Measure show, where I bluntly kind of said, when love's not reciprocal, when you're only half loving somebody, when you're only half-assing anything, is it really love? Do you actually truly love them, right? Because what binds these relationships is not love. Not purely. There probably is some loving attraction there, right? But it's not pure love. It's not, right? Because it's attachment. So it's almost like our wounds are participating in each other's suffering. We're just bouncing this traumas back and forth with people. This goes back to getting what you put out, right? You know, if you're putting out pain and hurt and all these things, you know, I'm not blaming you. I'm not pointing a finger. It is what it is. That's the stuff you're going to keep getting until you heal it. So if you have two people who are really, really wounded, you know, I don't want to just outright say you're not great for each other, because sometimes they are. There's always exceptions to all these rules, right? All these things. But in your attachment, as you said, you become less addicted to the person in front of you and more addicted to that pattern, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Or even, I mean, in your nervous system, one of the things that took me a while to wrap my head around is how it's like I've always craved chaos. All my relationships have been chaos. My life has been chaos. And I never liked the feeling of my nervous system being activated. But now that I have peace, it's taken me substantial amounts of time to learn that this is what I enjoy, to not go chasing or trying to create chaos. Because many people, when they get in their first healthy relationship, try to stir the pot. It's like, this feels unsafe because it feels safe. They confuse it with boredom. Mm-hmm. They end up starting to try chaos. And it's kind of like you were talking about with the push and pull. I've had a relationship like that where it was both sides. One person starts pulling away, the other one chases. Once they get that security, they start pulling away because they end up not liking how the other person's behaving. It's this back and forth. And they're stuck in this toxic dynamic because they know they're not good for each other, but they don't want to look elsewhere.
Right.
Or they're comfortable.
I was just going to ask you, you know, how big of a role does confusion play in these toxic relationships? And I think you nailed it. They thrive. What do you say? They thrive in confusion because it's that fog that keeps you from seeing things as they are.
Yeah.
Things become more illusionary because it's not that you don't want to heal. It's not that you don't want to make this work. It's just your wish it, want it, do it attitude just throws all these different fantasies out, and instead of facing the reality and turning and facing these traumas and the realities in front of you.
Yeah, I know for me, I was in that relationship for 7 years, and I always wondered, why do I keep staying in this relationship? Because my mind would go between, you know, seeing all the good in this person, then despising them for all the bad, and it'd just be this back and forth. And little did I know, it's because I was constantly trying to fix the relationship, fix the person.
Right.
And, I mean, codependency right there. It's that hoping you can be enough to save another person when you can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves.
What happens when we love somebody without clarity?
Distorts reason.
Distortion, yeah, 100%. 100%. Distorted love leads to suffering, unnecessarily suffering, And as we always say, the first act of healing is not running away from things, and maybe not even run away from a relationship unless it's abusive or something, else deeper is going on. But that sacred pause, find clarity first. Figure out where you can apply discernment, because discernment becomes a weapon against that confusion and that distortion, right?
Yeah. Helps you start to identify what's going on with you. I mean, your attachment system bonds to both pleasure and pain.
Yeah.
And often it's because it's trying to prove something, but you don't know that consciously. You are confusing this intensity for attraction when the intensity is really warning signs saying you're in danger.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why this axiom of light fits perfectly with what we're talking about. Confusion distorts reason. When in doubt, do not act. Seek guidance and proceed cautiously. Right? If you're swallowed by fog, it's hard to see anything for what it really is. How important is responsibility?
Well, I think responsibility is the key to truly evaluating the situation, because often we're not taking responsibility for our actions or just staying complacent in these types of dynamics. Right. I know one of the issues I had in my relationship, and this is on me, I was not good at asserting boundaries. And this person was very domineering, so she was not someone to have boundaries with. But if I had those boundaries, I would have known much earlier in that relationship that this was not a dynamic for me.
Right. Right. Because when you put up those boundaries, that was a challenge to her, right? To send in the troops.
Yeah.
To raid.
Go on the offense.
Right. Right. I want to point out, though, that taking responsibility is not about taking blame. We don't care about blame in this at all, because it doesn't help. Blaming doesn't help. It's about reclaiming power. That's what we're all about. We're about shadow work and self-mastery, right? That's what this podcast is all about. So taking responsibility is not me saying it's all my fault, more so than me saying, okay, it's time for me to reclaim my power. To understand that I can't control your actions, right? I can only control mine. So, and it's up to me to know when I'm being controlled or manipulated or giving away all my energy or not enforcing my boundaries, or that I'm not abandoning myself, right? To try and piece together some broken connection with somebody. So this, for us, this is spiritual maturity. When we can take responsibility. We don't care about blame. We don't care about shaming the other guy. We care about reclaiming power. And that's self-mastery. How important is respect here?
Respect is also important because, as you're saying, that this is not blame. You must respect yourself as you do these evaluations and respect the other person. I look at these relationships I've been in that have been toxic, and there was another a damaged human being on the other side who was coping with reality the way they knew how to. And I mean, tying back to responsibility, it was my responsibility to remove myself sooner from these dynamics, but at the same time, lessons needed to be learned. But you got to be respectful both to yourself and the other person. Kind of like the episode we did on forgiveness. We can't just be bitter towards those who have hurt us. We must be able to be accountable with the reality that they're just as hurt as you are in their own way. And it doesn't mean they're managing it better than you are or anything like that. Often, many of these very hurt people have very horrible and manipulative coping mechanisms when it comes to connection.
Yeah.
But it's seeing the humanity that's in each of us.
Yeah. Because this stuff really starts to happen when we forget how sacred our self-respect is, right? And because, as we say all the time when we talk about the agreements and the agreement of respect in particular, it's not just how we treat other people. It's not just how we see that light in others, but it's how we allow ourselves to be treated as well.
Yeah.
Right? Because you are a vessel of light, and you need to respect yourself as that. That's a sacred thing. You're a container filled with light, bro. Right? And you should never settle for relationships that cover that dim your light.
No. And it does not mean that there won't be criticism in healthy relationships. You want a partner who can call you on your crap. But there's a difference between saying, hey, I'm worried about this I'm seeing in you, and shaming you for your own behavior or issues.
Right, right. So we're talking about love, really, at the center of this, right?
Yeah.
Right? Love is the most powerful force in all of creation, as far as I'm concerned. More powerful than gravity, more powerful than anything. But love is not the same as attachment.
And you
Right?
can't love someone into being a better partner.
You can't. You can't. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to have someone who's willing
The
to meet
Beatles
you
got it wrong.
halfway.
The Beatles got it wrong. All you need is love. Well, sometimes you need boundaries, and sometimes you need to know when it's time to, right, skedaddle. So I know what they were trying to say. I get it. I'm just saying. But true love liberates, and it nurtures, and it uplifts the relationship, not just one or the other, right? It doesn't have unreasonable expectations. It doesn't have unreasonable boundaries. It doesn't have unreasonable conditions, right? That's love. This kind of toxic love that we're talking about, it manipulates, it imprisons, it feeds on fear and all those other things. So hopefully we will kind of show that today. I'm hoping.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the best places to start with this is core wounds, because often we are so oblivious to what's going on within us. We end up what is shadow work? Shadow work is when you're finally shining a light on the things you try to brush under the carpet. We walk through life with these traumas, these insecurities that have been with us most likely since childhood, if not from some really traumatic incident in our lives.
Yeah.
And they follow us around, they handle our attachment systems, and they're a key part of this dynamic and what keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
So I think one of the best core wounds to start with is the abandonment wound. I know for me, that was one that was always very much triggered. It's I will be left if I am not enough. And so it's this constant need to give and people please and just fear of conflict, because if I get confrontational, I might be abandoned. Yeah. And I see a lot of people with this where it's just they make themselves as small as they can to fit into wherever they need to into this person's life.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people deal with this. I don't know if you guys can see her. Heather's hanging out here with me today. Mm-hmm. But abandonment was really one of her really, really big wounds. Yeah.
Since I was a kid.
I mean, and somebody may hear this that might get their feelings hurt, but I don't really care. Do you mind if I share your story?
Go ahead.
Okay. I probably should ask, huh?
They hear. I don't care.
Well, it's good to share because you're going to have people that can relate, right? So, here's a kid who was barely a toddler, about 4 or 5 years, 4 years old, taken from her mom, never knew her real dad, not until she was in her 40s, taken from her mom, put into different foster systems, ended up being adopted eventually, got married to a dude who did her dirty and abandoned her. She has all these actual abandonment problems, and it's really caused a lot of problems, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that is a fair statement, that your core belief is everybody always leaves me eventually?
Yes, I still work on that. I still work on that daily. That's still a thing. Not so much nowadays is it as bad, but there are those moments in time. I would say everything you guys are working on today, it's spot on for what I deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, Michael, it's like a lot of these are really hurtfully. They happen when you're a kid, when you're little, when you should be protected, when you should be,
right.
Not shelter per se, but when you abandon people, when you get abandoned as a kid, or you're shamed as a kid, or you're invisible, or you're betrayed as a kid, man, that really cuts a big hole in somebody.
It really does, though. I know for me, it was nothing as crazy as what Heather went through, but I know for me, I lost a lot of friends because I ended up moving schools because I was special ed. So a lot of my friends sort of started dissociating from me. They stopped wanting to connect or hang out. I'd be bullied in that school. Then when I got to middle school, I thought I was going to be with everyone again. I remember one of the most traumatic moments as a kid is I had worked so hard to go to the middle school with my old friends and with my new ones, and was told I was going to go to a middle school that I would know no one. And it impacted me so profoundly, and I dealt with so much abandonment going through middle school, high school, and in relationships that it followed me, where I was always, I was a clinger. I was someone who, if I felt someone with one foot out the door, or I assumed there was a foot out the door, I would do everything I could to be the most I could be for that person.
Yeah.
And yeah, then again, that whole shrinking myself down, I would always try to adapt to whoever I was dating. I would try to become their perfect match so they wouldn't leave me. That chameleon aspect.
Yep.
And one thing I got to add with these core wounds is it's not a matter of just one. You could have all of these for all you know. Like these are all different wounds that just seem to really stick with our soul.
Yeah. If I'm out here today and I'm listening and, you know, I can kind of say, okay, abandonment, kind of be a little clingy, people pleaser, fear of conflict, really emotionally attached and dependent on somebody or some place or something or some relationship. And this could even be a family relationship, by the way. It doesn't even have to be a romantic one. How do I know?
You know, I think this is all of these sort of operate on a scale, but like I'd say from one end of the spectrum, it's like, how often are you looking at the phone to see if your partner's texting you? How often are you asking where they're at and what are they doing? How often are you trying to be a perfect partner? And it doesn't mean being a good partner. There is very much a difference here. When you are shrinking your needs to accommodate someone else's, which is a theme throughout a lot of these wounds.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it because your nervous system you're feeling anxious. Do you feel anxiety when your partner is acting a little off?
Yeah. Yeah. So this may come across in a way I'm hoping it doesn't. I don't remember having any of these. I'm sure I did. I just don't remember at what point I moved on because I was very young. But I can tell you, I am married to someone who displays all of these, right? So, and we can go one by one, and I'll tell you how I deal with it with her. I'm not a perfect partner. I'm not perfect at all. You guys both know me. I'm not perfect at all, right? And you know there is no perfect partner, right? There is a loving partner though. There is, where they love you truly. So, she's very clingy. Now, I will say that she's not always like any of these, but we have our moments, right? And as you guys know, I talk about my dynamic with Heather a lot. She doesn't hear this because she doesn't listen to the shows.
Shush, you're so full of baloney.
But so when she gets clingy, I give her as much time as I can handle because I'm not clingy, right? I'm the opposite of that. I do love touch and I do love holding and hugging and stuff. But then I get hot or I get annoyed and, so I always make sure I give her a reasonable amount of time to get that out of her system, If she's texting me, 5 or 6 times in an hour, I'll respond to the third one or second one and say, hey, I see you. I hope you're having a great day. I'm just really busy. I just want to check in with you for a second. Is everything okay? Right? And sometimes that helps her. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes she gets mad and that's okay. When she goes above and beyond to try to people please, not just me, because I always kind of put her in check. I was like, you got to take care of you too, but it's everybody else, right? That's around. And then I got to kind of put them in check. I'll put them in check. Oh, not her, but them. Be like, don't, give her some space, right? Type of thing. Fear of conflict. She never has a fear of conflict, but when she's ready to fight, she goes way overboard, right? Like Wolverine claws, and I just have to kind of, this is going to sound messed up, but the guy that holds the other kid's head and they're swinging at him and they just hold your, figuratively, I have to kind of do that. I don't literally do that because she doesn't literally try to hit me, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this emotional dependency. I've said this before, and you and I, because I know, especially with some of these, you and I have worked through these for you. This dependency, it's like, look, I love you, and I need you. I need you too, right? I need you too. You feel like you're being too much. You feel like you're hyper dependent on me, but just understand that I need you too. And So the next one, worthlessness.
Yeah.
I think that touches a lot of us, doesn't it? Because there are times where I'm not feeling very great.
Yeah, I know this one's a big one for me too. And it's just that feeling of I'm not enough.
Am I enough?
Yes.
The whole, am I doing enough? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I need to do more. Yeah.
Well, it's that constant scrutiny because we feel if we have any lapse in time. I know for me, overproductivity is one of my greatest areas where this kicks in. I've been doing a lot of shadow work these last couple of weeks because this wound inside of me has been really activated. It's finally been talking with me, and it's been a beautiful thing, but it's also made everything feel like it's under a magnifying glass. And it's the ability to sit with it, It's so easy to just say you're not doing enough and trying to compensate it with things like you're doing this, that, but you get so caught up in the emotion itself that you start staying busy and finding things to do because it's the only way for you to feel like you don't feel safe when you're not doing nothing.
Yeah. And this is something that I do for both of you. Right? Before you get to the point where you go out of your way unnecessarily to prove how important you are to me, to the show, and her as my wife and me as her husband, I will head that off sometimes, won't I? I will say to you, hey man, that little thing you did, that little suggestion you had, Michael, a while back, holy crap, dude, that was genius. That was awesome. I took it and I did some checking and some digging, some research on it, and I think we should do it. Before you ever have to feel like you have to, convince me or sell me or whatever, right? Before the show, you said, something about this and this and this. And I was like, okay, do it. Do it, bro. Right? Same thing with her. She often will come to me and say, I'm always showing my gratitude for her, right? I'm always thanking her for stuff. I'm always saying, hey, I really appreciate you doing this thing for me. And sometimes she'll say, well, it's not much, it's not much, or I could have done more. And it's like, are you kidding me? You literally built a ladder to the moon, climbed it, came back down to see if I needed anything, climbed back up to the moon, and you're telling me you didn't do enough? Oh my God. Are you kidding me? You did 400 times more than anybody would ever do, let alone expect you to do, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big issues with this core wound is we tend to minimize our own achievements.
Right.
I have to agree with that because even with work, if you add in work stuff, I would have never applied for a position that I am getting now. I would have never done that. I would have sat there and said, I'm not worth this position.
I know.
I can't do that. I'm incapable of doing that, and I would sit there, and hide myself in front of everybody, keep myself busy, constantly help everybody else, still doing the same thing that I'm doing now, which is overworking myself, not paying attention to my needs, using my voice and saying, no, I deserve this, I can do this, And now, since I've actually stepped into myself and actually started working on that, now those things have come to fruition, and that's where I'm at now.
Well, one of the biggest issues with this type of wound is it makes us always feel small no matter how good we are at playing the game. Yeah. We can do so much with our lives. We can be so accomplished, but we have to believe in ourselves. And what makes this wound so tricky is there's no real external validation that can truly give this wound comfort, because the only way you can validate your worth is through your own beliefs about yourself.
Right. Yep. But, and that's true, ultimately. That's true for anything. You have to do the work, ultimately, for everything. But it does help when you have a good cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right? Because
it's been night and day.
Yeah. Well, when you have a good cheerleader, and I could cheer her on 20 times, and maybe 2 out of 20 will catch, and she'll start to believe. And then sometimes 18 out of 20 will catch. It's just, but it doesn't mean we stop. And so I don't know if you guys have caught on to this, but I'm trying to play the good partner role here, right? So I can never fix Heather. I can never fix you. It's not about fixing people. No one's beyond redemption. That redemption comes from you and her and me personally. We don't get fixed, right? But it does help when we have a space provided for us to sit with when only 2 out of those 20 cheerleading cheers take, right? You don't really need this. You don't really need the space to sit in the mud, as you say, when 18 out of the 20 take, because you're doing pretty good. But when you can only find reason to feel like you're enough 2 out of 20 times, that's where that space is important, to just be reminded. So,
well, and it's like one of the things is, as you get into healthy relationships, almost everyone has a core wound. And it's all about, again, it's on a scale. Many people have learned to cope with it or have learned to change that core wound. But often when we get into secure relationships, we got to learn what the insecurities are of the other to help them work through it themselves. One of the beautiful things with Allison and I relationship, it's this constant mirroring we give each other to help one another work through our issues. And it doesn't mean that it's like if I mess up and she's like, oh, you didn't do anything wrong. There's accountability there. But there's also it's okay to be human. You know, you messed up there, but what can you do different next time?
Yeah. What about invisibility?
Yeah. You know, my needs don't matter, I think, is the feeling you really get. It's always silencing yourself. You know, emotionally self-abandoning. That way your emotions don't cause ripples and impact other people. You know, it's a heavy one to deal with, because when you feel invisible, it's hard to build that self-confidence you need to heal. And, you know, this episode's about healing after toxic relationships. You know, you really got to sit with yourself and figure out what it is that makes you feel this way, and how can you start doing steps to start make your needs more important than the needs of others.
Yeah.
Because until you get to that place. This
one's really hard to be the counterbalance. This one's really hard, because this one comes from a very deep place, and it could be 1,000 different reasons why you have this wound, and there isn't really any great counterbalances to this, because no matter how many times I may tell her, hey, what can I do for you? No, I'm good. I don't matter. This one's so dangerous, Michael, because this is kind of that state of mind where people start to isolate, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
And this one really gets into that real dangerous territory. It really, really does. Because if you abandon yourself emotionally, and you start to believe that you're invisible even in your own story, this is where, you know, if Heather really went into this one really, really deep, I would really, really, really push her to get some professional help, you know, because, I mean, people die from this one. They really do.
When it's just so deep. I know for me, I was the lost child growing up, and I dealt with this so much going through middle school and high school. And it really took rewiring my mind and teaching my nervous system safety amongst others. Because often it's like we feel safer in this invisibility realm. And it's just all this shame that likes to coat itself in our thoughts to tell us we're not good enough, that we're not worthy, that it hits all these so strongly, because when we're invisible, we are safe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we feel so alone.
Yeah. And
loneliness is one of the most detrimental things to your health, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yeah. The last one, I think we all, every single one of us on Earth, here presently and here and gone over the whole of humanity, can understand betrayal and distrust.
Yeah.
This one touches every single one of us.
This is one of those ones you see truly change people when they adopt it. You know, they have that one relationship where they're cheated on, or something is done that's just so beyond what they thought could happen. And it makes love feel dangerous. And this is one of the things that can lead to hyper independence and not wanting to be vulnerable with others. It puts that armor on and just tells you that relationships are dangerous. And if you start getting close, it's easy to get jealous. You're hyper vigilant all the time. Mm-hmm. You end up testing relationships because you're like, where's it going to break in this relationship? What's going to go wrong here? And you don't necessarily consciously think that, but it's definitely what the behavior can come from this.
Yeah. I think everyone can understand this one. You know, all you can really do is when someone's being hyper vigilant is to give them grace. Just give them as much grace as you can, you know, because these things take time to heal. When I met Heather, I came out of I hadn't just come out of a relationship like that with my first wife, but I was still pretty on guard. And ironically, even though Heather came from a lot of betrayal before me, a lot of distrust, and who blames her, right? I don't blame her. She actually helped me heal from this fourth one. So when I said earlier, I don't remember really going through this one for sure. I know, because I was a grown-up when I went through this one. So
Yeah. You know, and usually when we're going through these toxic relationships, it's not the relationship that created the wound. More often than not. I'm not saying they don't, because they definitely do.
right.
But it reveals them to you. It's
Right.
when you get these parts activated, when you're finally bare after the relationship, is when you got to sit with that pain and you got to ask yourself, what is really going on here?
What were you going
Well,
to
I
say?
was gonna say, like, when we first met, you know, remember I I told you something. What did I tell you?
You told me a lot. We've been married. We've been together for 24 years, and she asked me one thing. I remember one thing. What was
I
it?
made one. I said, if you're gonna do something, you better go do it now.
Oh yeah.
Because-
So
yeah.
right. So before we got married, she's like, "Listen, we're getting married in a few days from
Yeah.
now, or whatever it was. Go out and sow your oats, as it were." You know, I was like, that's a trap. I'm not doing that. But that, you know, that comes from a place where she's like, look, you're going to do it anyway. So I'd rather you do it before we're married, type of thing.
Yeah, that's that trauma speaking right there.
That is 100%. So what would you say to somebody who believes that they are being punished because they carry these wounds?
Give yourself grace. You know, I mean, it's like these wounds can be so heavy, and if you're not your biggest advocate on working through them, if you can't give yourself the same grace and understanding you give everyone else, then you're doomed. You know,
But it's not. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
all this interview and I loved what he said, and it's just like this guy wanted to give up after 2 months of trying to do this healing work, and he had to stop himself, and he's like, I gave myself 30 years to screw up my life, and I'm only willing to give myself 2 months to correct
Right.
everything that I've learned.
Right.
It's like this takes work. I mean, I'm just a couple years into this and I've come far, but it's like I said just a couple weeks ago, the worthiness wound came up and I had to sit with it.
Yeah.
I had to do work on it because it's not fully healed.
Right.
This is going to be a lifelong process.
Yeah. All things in the realm of spirituality and healing are lifetime things. Requires patience. There's that dirty P word again.
You know?
Keeps bringing up that dirty, filthy P word that no one likes. I don't even like the word patience
Now, there's
Because
no quick fix.
because I'm not always very patient. But these things require patience because, as you just alluded to, it took years to form all of this pain and all of these traumas, and they will not vanish overnight. But with each flashback that we get, each trigger, that becomes an invitation, right? To slow down and face these things. And you know what? These flashbacks, these triggers might attack you 100 times before you finally go, stop, enough, right?
You know?
And even though you stand up to that thing one time out of 100, it may come at you again for another 20 or another 30, another 40 before you say stop. But if as you do it more and more and more and more, it's only I promise you'll get to a point where it's like, it'll smack you 5 times and you'll be like, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
You will get that down to where now it starts to come up and you look at it and you say, sit down. And you sit with it. And you sit with it and you work it out. It doesn't ever go away completely. But it's all
Start
about
to make peace with it.
Make peace with it, man. Sit down with it. So what was I going to say? These wounds are not punishments for anything. That's just kind of the point I wanted to make. These aren't punishments. Again, these things can be teachers if we let them. You can think of it as a curriculum. And I know that's maybe a cold-hearted thing to say, but for someone who's gone through all this stuff, and you know, I have my own stories from when I was a little kid, but I'm not here to compare. I probably couldn't, especially knowing what I know about you too. I'm just like, my childhood was fucking awesome. I'm just saying. But it's not about comparisons. It's about how, it's not the thing that traumatized you. It's just the fact of you're traumatized now.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say one of the important things to distinguish here is, again, trauma is never about what happened to us and how severe it was. It's how we internalize the events of our life. And you could have broken every bone in your body and it was traumatic for you. And someone could be 40 years old and break their big toe for the first time and be just as traumatized as the person who broke every bone in their body.
Broke my leg that way in my 40s. Well, yeah, in my 40s. Yeah, traumatized me. As if I had fought off the alien invasion handily, which was weird. I can't tell you how weird that was. But anyways, yeah. I just don't want people, I want people to understand, again, it's not about shame. It's not about blame. No one's punishing you. These things can be teachers, and they will become teachers if you stand up to them. And eventually you will, more and more and more, before they just become integrated into your life, right? Where they start acting up, you go, nope, hey, sit down. We're going to deal with this right now, you and me. So...
Yeah. Well, and it's like realistically, when it comes to healing after being in a toxic relationship, there are 3 directions people can go. You have doing this work and healing, working through your crap, and rediscovering yourself. You have the path of bitterness, which is the path of blame and shame, and just not taking any ownership over the part you played in your own relationship.
Right.
And then there's the third path, which I see a lot, and it's where you just try to shove all these insecurities that come up, all this pain, you try to shove it under the rug, jump into another relationship, and not look at it. If I just get another relationship, I can heal it that way because I won't have to look at it. Someone will love me, and you start the cycle all over again.
Yeah. I just wanted to hammer home the point that none of us are beyond redemption. And redemption, just like trauma, it doesn't have to, it's a scale. We're not, I'm not here to judge what a person needs to be redeemed from. But if you're out there feeling like you're less than, or you can never heal, or you're never good enough, or you're never worthy, if you feel that way about yourself, just listen to the words I'm saying. No one is beyond redemption. That doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or you did something bad, but I'm just trying to encourage you, as this axiom is encouraging us, no one is beyond redemption. That which is corrupt takes time to reform. It's never too late, and you're never going to run out of time. You just have to start. You just got to take the first step, right? So that was kind of the point I wanted to make. Again, there's no shame or blame. You can defeat this.
So I think a good way to segue this conversation is getting into how trauma responses show up in these situations. And often, once we get out of the relationship, they start to rear their ugly heads when we try to start getting back into connection. And so, we've gone over the trauma responses. We've done a whole episode on it: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Mm-hmm. But let's go into just sort of how this shows up in these dynamics. So fighting, I think, is one that many of us know. Trying to convince, fix, argue, control. I've been on the receiving end of that more times than I care to admit. Man, it can be so difficult to try to navigate that because often there's a narrative running, and trying to find a baseline where we can create connection. I mean, one of the things I've learned is to help de-escalate that conflict is to initiate in conversation, be curious about what is the underlying thing they're trying to say. Like, it'll be a whole bunch of crap talking, it'll be a whole bunch of things, and it's like, what is the root of this conversation? Are you not feeling heard or seen?
Right. It's important to make sure that we understand, especially because these responses are usually triggered by unpredictability. It's always so up and down, and this is the nervous system, which is like that sacred protector, right? It's been with us humans since the very beginning of humanity, and it's there to protect us first and foremost. So these are the ways it protects us. Not always in good ways, sometimes in good, but every time these things become unpredictable, we remember, and we don't just remember. We remember, physically, right? When we were unsafe, when we were unseen, when we felt unworthy, or someone actually told us, you suck, you're not worthy. These traumas, but I really want to point out that again, these are not personality flaws. Like I said earlier, I can't fix anybody. No one can fix me because you're not flawed. You're not actually broken per se. I know that's a good word to use, and some people use it in a way that it fits, but I just want people to remember, again, these aren't flaws. You're not less than because you have these, because we all have these, or we've had them, and sometimes we've had them all. I want you to think of it like survival codes, literally written into your nervous system. A lot of this happens long before you could even speak words.
Yeah.
So the fighter, the protector. The fighter becomes the protector sometimes, right?
Yeah.
When fear arises, we go right into battle, man. This fight response believes that safety comes through what?
Protection. Through control.
Control. I got the wheel, man. I got it. Get your hands off. I got it. I'm driving this bus, right?
Yeah.
But it's also that impulse to fix, to prove how worthy you are, to prove your worth through dominance, aggressiveness sometimes.
Yeah, it's a way to create safety for yourself. It's not a good way, but it's trying to manage everyone else to fit into your own.
Exactly. Yes. Right. And I've known a lot of people like this, and yet they are physically aggressive, but they're also really logically aggressive too. Like they'll constantly debate you on everything, right? Or they'll have these, or they'll switch to these emotional outbursts where they just flipping out. Or again, they try to win connection by force or aggressiveness, or always trying to be right all the damn time. But I have a feeling this comes from a fear of being powerless.
Well, I think one of the most important things is there's someone who suffers with this. It's that pause we talk about. You got to learn to be able to pause as soon as that system gets activated, because there's that split second between reaction and being able to stop yourself and say, I need space. I need to gather my emotions. I remember I spoke to a really amazing professor down in California, and he was talking about how when your heart rate gets above 95, you're no longer taking in the conversation that's going on. That's when it becomes a battle of wills. Mm-hmm. And the issue in that is it's no longer about what is going to fix things. It's never about how can we come to a compromise. It is how can I bulldoze my way through this conversation to get what I want.
And of course, our perspective from Ashla, we teach and are taught that strength must flow through balance, both aggressive and non-aggressive. We have to find a good balance there, because some situations require aggressiveness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Not all, though. And not all situations require non-aggression.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's like, again, that it's a spectrum, right? You have aggressive on one side, passive on the other. So what's the middle?
Yeah.
Being assertive.
Yes.
And being assertive is not being aggressive. It is being able to approach things in a calm and collected manner as a way to manage the conflict and create solutions.
Yes. We must guide it.
Yes.
This energy comes up for all of us. We must guide it. We must channel that energy into things like boundaries. We must channel this energy into things like advocacy for ourselves and others, and truth rather than control, presence rather than perfection, and to cooperate versus control. And the pause, I love that for this. It's perfect. Even if it's
the most necessary step.
It is. It is. And the more you learn to pause, the more real control you have over yourself.
And the situation.
And the situation. So, what about the escape artist? The escapist? Flight.
Man, I tell you what, that's the one I'm guilty of. I just start checking out. I start dissociating, escapism. It's this inability to cope with the confrontation at hand. And so it's looking for anything to just escape into, to get away from it. I know there were times where it's like I'd go hiking every day just to not be around my partner. There's times where conflict's going on, and you'll find some way to get out of that conversation because it's getting too intense. Yeah. Compulsive busyness, right? Yeah.
You talk about that a lot. You're just constantly trying to find ways to be busy or distracted.
Yeah.
Or straight up avoiding, just ghosting.
Yo.
Right? And of course, we bury ourselves in work, especially. And this is why, so things like spirituality, things like this endless, never-ending path of self-improvement with, the 4 bookshelves full of books, and it's very easy to fly into these things because they're so endless and vast. You can literally get lost in them forever. And, so you'll find yourself burying yourself in, if it's not work, you'll bury yourself in spirituality. You'll bury yourself in, like I said, this endless quest of self-improvement, which aren't bad things when they're done with purpose.
Practice.
And practice. So in Ashla, we teach and believe and learn that movement must be guided with purpose, guided by purpose, not fear, right? So, and the danger of flight is that it trades this inner peace for external activity, right? Action's important. Action is important. But if you're doing action to avoid things like responsibility, for your path or respect for yourself because you're allowing people to do things to you, or I probably shouldn't have said it like that, but you're allowing people to cross your boundaries. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
That's a better way to say it.
Yep. So yeah. And practice, like you said. And again, when you notice the urge to fly, to escape, pause for a minute. Pause and breathe.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm getting overwhelmed by this. Can we take a moment for me to collect myself? Often when these responses kick on, parts of our brain shut down and different hardware kicks on because it's our survival instincts. And we got to learn to be able to catch ourselves in those moments so we can bring ourselves back to baseline. Breathing work, breath work, doing different types of grounding exercises. And if you have a healthy relationship, your partner will hear you. They will see you. They will give you that space so you can collect yourself.
And for others, sometimes the safest thing to do is to feel like you're like doing nothing, like just freezing. Just wait forever. Not patiently wait, but just wait. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And I think that ties into the next one. Freeze response.
Yeah.
Which, man, that's probably the one I struggled with the most. I always bounced between freeze and flight when it came to really hard situations like that. And freezing, your brain just starts to shut down. You start going into confusion. You start questioning yourself. It's almost like you're paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And you just feel stuck despite the pain. Yeah. And this is the most important time to advocate for yourself because once that freeze response kicks on, it's almost like you freeze. And thawing that out takes time and deliberate action. And when you're in a toxic relationship where someone is just bad-mouthing you and putting you down and you start to freeze, it's such a helpless sensation.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will confuse that with laziness. It's not. It's shock. You're in shock. Maybe not literally all the time, sometimes probably, but you're virtually in shock. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act. I don't know what to choose. I don't know what's going on. I don't know, And this even manifests itself in staying in relationships, even though the writing's been on the wall, on every wall around you to go, being stuck there. Because like you said, part of you, in a way, you're paralyzed by that uncertainty.
Then we got fawning, which is another big one. It's the constant caretaking. It's if I keep appeasing someone, I won't have to worry about consequences. If I keep shrinking myself down, abandoning myself for this other person's needs, then I won't feel helpless.
Yeah.
Or you're just seeking approval.
And I know we talked about these before, but this one's probably the most misunderstood because it presents as being very kind and caring and noble because you have this instinct to appease, to be a caretaker, to sacrifice your own needs for false peace, right?
And often we don't even realize we're doing it. We think, again, like you said, we feel like we're noble. We're doing the right thing. Right. That is the deception we tell ourselves to cope with this type of behavior.
Yeah. The ethos of love calls us to compassion always, right? But not self-erasure, not at the expense of our integrity and our authenticity. And this one's tough because it's almost like love has been turned into survival, right?
Yeah.
But truth is, you never need to shrink to be safe. That's illusion. That's illusion. You must shine, especially in the face of conflict, especially in the face of things that are going against your beliefs and your love and your integrity, right?
Or that's shutting down your needs. You have to have needs in a relationship, and if needs aren't being met, that is just premeditated resentment.
Yes. Yeah. You must remember. You must remember. This is a command. You must remember that your needs are sacred too. So when you notice yourself over-explaining or trying to be the caretaker for everyone and everything, again, pause and breathe and ask yourself, am I giving from full love, true love, or from fear? And you've got to practice saying the small no's.
Yeah. And that's where you have to begin. This is not something that just changes once you see it. It is one of those things where all these things are the same way. It's all the small, manageable steps. It's retraining your nervous system to safety. Because that's all this is. It's your nervous system's way of trying to survive.
Right. But don't say no just because you're trying to be defiant or you're just trying to learn to say no. Make sure they're honest no's. And they got to be small ones. Because you respect your energy. And you respect your boundaries. Because each time you do the little ones, the big ones that really can cause you harm, those will be easy. You'll eventually get to the point where you're like, nah, I'm good. Right? But I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. Because each trauma response carries a hidden virtue that we can alchemize to. There's always an opportunity for alchemy in everything we do, right?
Yeah.
Fight holds power. That power is waiting to become courage. Flight holds instinct, that thing that's embedded in us, waiting to become discernment. Freeze holds stillness, that we can alchemize into presence. Fawn holds empathy, waiting to become self-respect. So these are some alchemy that we can do when we're at the precipice of these things, when we realize, man, I do like to fight too much. What am I trying to, So these are markers, these are indicators, these are signals, and they can be teachers. We're not out here to destroy anything. Nothing, right? We're looking to elevate and integrate. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's like when we learn to sit with these parts of ourselves, the reason these things come online, these wounds that are inside, they're trying to show us something. They're trying to have us transmute something within us so that we can become whole again. Which is all what self-mastery is about. It is taking these parts of us that we have shunned, that we have repressed, and giving them air, giving them light, and allowing them to become a part of us again. That way we can engage more fully in our relationships and in our own needs, because that's what this all comes down to. When you're in a toxic relationship, often your needs are not getting met. Often these wounds are operating from these beliefs that you hold deep within your body. And that is where this is stored. It's not stored in the mind. These are wounds that are in the body. Yeah. And when they get triggered, when they get activated, it is our spirit's call to find balance within ourselves again, to find wholeness in the areas that we don't feel whole in.
Yeah. So why is it when we finally do walk away from toxicity in our relationships, why doesn't it end there? Why isn't leaving the end?
Because often these relationships that are toxic are rooted in attachment. And this attachment is something that goes within the patterns of our relationships all the way back to our childhood. And when we leave a toxic relationship, that is you once again not being able to be the hero of the story. It is you once again falling at the same end of the cycle. And we end up, again, it's stored in the body. It is something that carries with us, that needs processed, that needs evaluated. The one beautiful thing I can say about toxic relationships is it will show us the parts of ourselves we have refused to see. And it is in this quiet mourning that we go through after these dynamics that allows us to truly see these parts of ourselves that we've been neglecting this whole time.
Yeah. Because your body will still expect that unpredictable chaos, right? And your mind still yearns for that familiar pattern that it's been going on.
Yeah. I mean, what's the identity you have tied to these wounds? You know, are you trying to be a healer? I think that's one a lot of people fall into. I can help this person through their addiction. I can help this person get their life together. or being the rescuer. I'm going to save this person from the circumstance, their own actions.
Right. The prover.
Yeah. If I can just do more, then I will get the love that I deserve. I will be worthy of the love I want.
Not just doing more. If I do everything just right, if I do everything perfect, if I just love a little harder, if I just sacrifice a little more, there's always more that I can do. If I could hold all the weight of the world, then someone will finally see me.
Someone will finally choose me.
Yes.
Because in the end, that's what these responses are. This is you playing out the same dynamic. And often, this is learned behavior from our parents. For me, my dad drank a lot. And my mom was the one who took care of everything around the house, ushered us around a bunch. And it was this codependent relationship. And I learned from my mother that's how love looked. And so I would be in these dynamics that I would be the one trying to make their lives look good, help them, save them every time they slipped and fell, and never let them learn from their own actions.
Yeah.
But it was all in this strange attempt that maybe if I sacrifice just enough, then I'll be chosen. I will be loved if I sacrifice enough.
Yeah. And again, there's alchemy here. There's an opportunity for alchemy here. The healer teaches compassion. The rescuer teaches discernment. The prover teaches self-worth. The chosen one teaches divine belonging. Just as an aside, I don't know if it's just me, but I notice a lot of chosen one videos and shorts and just stuff everywhere. What is that about?
Oh, it's easy to see. It is what people want to hear. If it bleeds, it reads. And so many people want to find these videos that will affirm their own beliefs. Because often when we're in this stage, getting over a toxic relationship, how we talked about those ups and downs and that intermittent reinforcement, it's an addiction. And, it's strained. It feels like withdrawal. Why? Because it is. You are no longer being a healer, a rescuer. You are craving that validation that maybe they were the one. And so those videos get so many views. People save them to their inboxes to try to affirm it.
Do you know the ones I'm talking about? Like I just seen one the other day that for some reason it was something like, have you never broken a bone? Then you might be chosen. And I'm like, what?
I was thinking of the ones that are like, it's true love when you both bumped elbows in a movie theater or something.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen those too, but like
what you're talking about too, and it is outrageous. Yeah. I don't get it. Feel special. It's people want to feel special, so they are drawn to it. It's that whole indigo child thing, right? And I'm not saying that's not a real thing. Right. It's like I doubt 90% of the population is an indigo child.
Right. Because then only 10% of us are humans.
And unfortunately, this is one of the ways these responses. I mean, unfortunately, the reason this work is so hard is, again, you can gain all the knowledge in the world, but without action, without retraining your nervous system, you're going to be stuck. And people, when they're stuck and they're seeing all these insecurities, when they're in these dark points and they don't want to do the work, they will go to anything that's going to make them feel special. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm not blaming anyone. I've been guilty of it.
Yeah.
But there comes a point where you got to ask yourself, what am I doing to change my situation, to change the way I'm showing up in life? Why do these things keep popping up in my life? Why do I keep ending up in the same type of relationships? And often there's one common denominator in all of it, and that's you. And that's not to judge, that's not to blame.
Nope.
But it is just being accountable with where you're at in life and why.
It's the ethos of truth. So, we've talked a lot about trauma and toxicity and stuff. Michael, tell me, can we start healing from this? What is that healing process?
I heard this beautiful line in a podcast months and months and months ago, and it's stuck with me ever since. If you want the answer to a question about your life, if you sit in the void and you ask yourself that question, you let it come to the surface, it will come to the surface. You got to identify what is this wound that is driving your behaviors, your reactions. Yeah. What is the emotional pain that you're either running from or running towards? Because often it's both. Mm-hmm. So we start by identifying the wound.
It's not about analyzing them. It's about meeting you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts with this. It's one of the great paradoxes of healing is analyzing is only 20% of the battle. And many people think if I can just analyze it and understand every single dimension of this, then I'll be fine. But again, it's 20% awareness, 80% work.
Yeah, because the whole point of healing, this process is not about getting over someone. It's about coming home to yourself and dealing with those things that you need to tend to now.
You got to come back into the body. You got to realize, again, if this stuff isn't stored in the mind, it's stored in the body. And we got to figure out where all this pain is stored, and we got to get in touch with it. We got to process it to feel it. If you're someone who has a worthiness wound, you got to stop running from feeling unworthy.
Yeah.
You got to allow yourself to sit in that feeling. Yeah. You got to allow yourself to feel unworthy and love yourself anyway.
You must be a witness to it. You have to witness this stuff without judgment, because you can't heal when you refuse to look these things in the eye. Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish I could give you an elixir to just be good. I can't.
Well, I think that's one of the issues with Western medicine is it's just like, let me give you medications to fix your problem instead of let's get to the roots. Let's figure out what's driving this behavior, these emotions. And that's not easy work. Like, none of this is easy work. So I think the next important question, once you find in your body, once you identify that wound, you got to meet that part of you. You got to ask it, what are you trying to protect me from? You know, are you overcompensating because there's a worthiness issue? Are you afraid of rejection? Are you afraid of being seen as lesser than? Where did this belief come from?
What are you trying to protect me from?
Yeah.
I know you're here to protect me, and I'm grateful, but what are you trying to protect me from, right? Yeah. And again, we need to treat these as messengers, not mistakes. It does no good to you just go deeper into that rumination. They're messengers. They can be teachers. But look, I appreciate you, bro. But what are you protecting me from?
Yeah. And you know, once you figure out what that is, start building internal safety. You know, internal safety. You got to be able to start very, very small. When you think about that relationship you got out of, when those emotions arise, you got to start doing grounding work as you're feeling those emotions. Stay present with your emotions. Allow the nervous system to kick up and flare up, and then allow it to just process out of you. Don't analyze it. That is the key, because analyzing will do nothing but perpetuate it.
Yeah, because you're not going to achieve this through just your thoughts. Yeah. It's a rhythm. It's the rhythm of practice, consistency, right? Repetition. Yeah.
And you're going to deal with rumination. Again, it's the body is where this is all stored. You might think it's the memories in your head, but you'll notice you'll be having a great day. You're going to feel that anxiety kick up in your body. It's going to taint your mind, and your mind is going to start having anxious thoughts, which will usually be tied by what's causing what things in your life have been anxious lately, especially getting out of a rough relationship. Right. So again, start learning how to regulate your nervous system, getting to baseline. Then you can start building routines where you can actually start challenging your where your nervous system will get activated. If you deal with social anxiety, which often is a symptom that people deal with after getting out of a really bad long-term relationship, you know, you got to put yourself out there in public, and it's going to feel uncomfortable as hell. But it's being able to consistently show up and slowly teach your nervous system safety again. You know, and you got to learn, and in this process, you got to relearn love and safe relationships. And this doesn't have to be romantic. It can be a friendship, a therapist, a family member, someone you trust. Allow yourself to open up, talk about these things. Allow yourself to be triggered in these conversations and be able to learn regulation. Because again, it's that pause. It's when you're in a safe connection, you can say, hey, I'm feeling a little triggered right now. I need to reset myself to baseline. Just give me a minute. Yeah. But it's, again, retraining yourself that things are safe and that you are safe. Because often this is all tied into a whole bunch of shame where you feel that you are incapable of handling abandonment, worthiness, being invisible. It's our body's way of trying to keep us safe by predicting outcomes. And we got to teach it what other outcomes look like. Otherwise, you're going to be in a perpetual state of this, no matter how much you figure out about yourself.
Right, because healing from this is not about erasing the past or ignoring it or running from it. Again, it's about reclaiming power.
It's reparenting, not rejecting love.
Yeah. You're not broken. You're not. There's nothing wrong with you per se. You're hurt and it's time to heal. Again, no one is beyond redemption. That which is corrupt takes time to reform. Such a powerful axiom. It really is. It really, really is. Because even the most painful things that we go through can just be repurposed into soil for us to be reborn in. A new story, one where we're healed, right? It's possible. Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, and healing doesn't mean that the memories disappear. Right. Healing means that you reclaim yourself, that you reclaim your worth, that they did not define who you are as a person. That's your job.
Yeah.
Do you got any closing thoughts before we finish up the episode?
I do. So remember, healing, not just after toxic love and toxic relationships, but healing in general, isn't just one single moment in time. It's a gradual thing. It's an unfolding. It's remembering who you were before whatever the pain was that taught you to doubt yourself, to doubt your worth, to doubt other people, whatever the case may be. And you're not broken because you stuck around. You're not broken at all. Again, you were trying to be, in some cases, loyal to love. Maybe you misunderstood what love was. Maybe you had to learn what true love is. We've all learned things the hard way, right? But now it's time to go inside. Not to hide, not to isolate, but to heal. We have to tend to ourselves. We have to tend to our own soul, to our own peace, right?
Yeah.
And look, there is no shame in scars. Chicks dig scars, right? Like that one scar I have. Somebody stabbed me many years ago, right in the stomach. And
oh shit!
I show off to Heather. See my scars? No, there's no shame in scars. They are proof that you were living, you were alive, you were brave enough to feel something deeply. And again, like you said, healing doesn't erase the past. It doesn't. It transforms suffering into something better. Right?
If we choose to.
Right. And so my call to action for this, I want you to take care of yourselves. And I want you to choose one act of devotion to yourself. Just one. Or 100. Splurge, man. Take care of yourself. But at least one. At least one. Take a walk and contemplate. Take a walk in silence by yourself. Contemplate things. Writing a letter of forgiveness to the version of you who didn't know better. Now you're starting to learn better, right? Forgive yourself for that. That's a really powerful one. Saying one no, learning to say the little no's to someone who just sucks the marrow out of your bones.
Yeah.
Say yes to peace, inner peace, stillness, right? So, let your healing be active and intentional. And it isn't about proving strength. It's about reclaiming your heart without fear. If you take one thing away from this conversation today, let it be, you are worthy of love, and you're worthy of love that doesn't hurt you. And you're worthy of peace that stays peaceful. So that's what I have.
Beautiful. For our affirmations today, I am no longer defined by who hurt me. I release the need to be chosen. The pain was not my punishment. I can hold love and boundaries at the same time. My heart is not broken. It is becoming. For our exercise today, this is a little something I learned this week that's been really helpful as I've been navigating my own core wounds. And that's take some time in stillness and allow yourself to have those hard memories come up. Let those emotions of worthlessness, of fear of abandonment, allow those emotions to come up. Then place your hand on your chest. Feel the sensation in your body. If it's in your gut, feel it on your gut. Feel the sensation in your body. Now, sit with the emotion. For me, it was unworthiness coming up. And I realized, I've always heard, you got to feel it to heal it, try not to fix it. And I don't think I fully wrapped my head around it until this week. And it's being able to sit with that emotion. And usually when I had worthlessness come up, unworthiness, it would be me, I would then try to be like, no, look at what you're doing. You're doing this, you're doing that. No, that's trying to fix it. That's trying to tell it you don't know what you're talking about. Allow yourself to feel that insecurity, to sit with it, to embody it. And it doesn't mean this is who you are, but it means allow it to be present within you. Feel the energy within your chest and allow it to dissipate slowly. Give yourself at least 10 minutes of this. And just sit with these emotions and these feelings and these judgments you have about yourself without judgment. For me, this is how I felt like I got in touch with my inner child. because I felt like it was him trying to say that this is how he felt for so long. And I hope it does the same for you. For our journalers today, what was I hoping this relationship would give me that I did not know how to give myself? Write without censoring. Don't try to sound wise. Let it be raw. Ask yourself, what is it? What need was being met? Was it feeling needed? Was it being able to self-abandon because that's what you know is how you meet love? What needs were being met in this relationship? Ask yourself, in what ways did I abandon myself in order to stay connected? And be specific. What moments, patterns, behaviors? No blame, just truth. Then lastly, who was I before this relationship? And what parts of myself do I want to bring back? Just make the list. It doesn't need to be poetic. Is it your humor? Was it getting out into nature? Was it being around friends? Was it slow mornings? And then ask yourself, how can I get back into one of these things? Often when we don't look at, when we're able to just jump into it instead of just keep observing it, it helps us get back into our old selves and back into the old swing of things. And give yourself grace while you go through this. This is not an easy process. Heartbreak is a real thing, and it is not something that can be fixed with dissociating or trying to run from it or jumping into another relationship. It is something that has to be felt, it is something that has to be held, and it's something that has to be witnessed. I hope this episode resonated with you and taught you some new things about coping with this. And thank you so much for joining us today. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem. We love you.